Imagine being in the middle of a meeting, camera on, colleagues watching, and from somewhere in the house you hear it. Crying, screaming, the sound of something breaking. You didn't know they were home. Nobody told you. You assumed your wife picked them up 2 hours ago. You assumed because that was the plan. The only plan you ever agreed to. But your wife had other plans. She just never told you what they were. This is the story of a man who spent 2 years trying to hold his family together, while his wife dismantled it one silent decision at a time. And the moment he realized that silence wasn't carelessness, it was control. Picture a household that, from the outside, looks like it works. He works from home 4 days a week, focused, reliable, building a career while staying present in his children's lives. On the fifth day, he heads into the office, sometimes just for a half day. He is, by every measure, an engaged father and a committed husband. She works nights, so the division of labor makes sense on paper. He handles the morning routine, waking up early to take their two young children to daycare while she sleeps. She picks them up at 2 in the afternoon, spends the evening hours with them, and the household keeps moving. It was a system built on trust, and trust, it turns out, requires communication. The children are young, vulnerable in the way only small children can be, dependent entirely on the adults in their world to make sure they are safe, cared for, and never forgotten. He loved his wife. He believed in the life they were building. But for 2 years, something had been quietly eroding the foundation of that life. And he was only just beginning to understand how deep the damage ran. It started small, or at least that's how it seemed at first. She would pick up the kids from daycare, except sometimes she wouldn't. She'd made plans, lunch with friends, an early dinner, something she'd arranged days ago, sometimes weeks ago, and simply never mentioned. He would be mid-meeting, locked into a call he couldn't leave, and the front door would open, small feet on hardwood floors, and the sudden, stomach-dropping realization that he was now the sole parent on duty, with no warning and no way to prepare. He started checking during quiet moments, pausing between tasks to look down the hallway, to listen for sounds that shouldn't be there. His focus, the thing his job demanded, fractured. Clients noticed. Colleagues noticed. His performance began to suffer at the edges. But here is where it gets darker. When he brought it up, calmly, respectfully, asking only for basic communication, she got angry. She told him he should be more alert. When the kids made messes because he was on a call and had no idea they were in his care, she blamed him. When he was ambushed by a weekend commitment he'd never heard of, a wedding, a birthday party, an event she had accepted an invitation to on behalf of both of them, she told him he should have been paying attention. If he paid more attention, he would know. But here's the detail that strips away every possible charitable interpretation of what she was doing. Physical invitations, cards, letters, anything tangible, went directly into her keepsake drawer, a drawer she kept locked, a drawer to which only she had a key. This was not forgetfulness. This was not disorganization. This was a woman who was actively curating the information her husband had access to and then punishing him for not having it. He couldn't prepare because he wasn't meant to prepare. He couldn't plan because planning would have given him agency. And she didn't want him to have agency. She wanted him scrambling. She wanted him reactive. She wanted to be the one who decided when he knew what, and she wanted him to feel like the failure when the gaps in his knowledge showed. She told him she wasn't his mother. He told her to stop answering for him like she was. She told him he should know without being told. He asked, how? She had no answer for that, just more anger. He sat with that anger, night after night. He watched her leave without a word, watched his children look up at him in confusion, watched the minutes on his work clock disappear into a job he was slowly losing his grip on. And every time he tried to name what was happening, every time he put words to the dynamic she had constructed, she burned it down with her temper. 3 times he suggested marriage counseling. 3 times she deflected. 4 months ago, he didn't just suggest it. He booked the appointment himself. He put in the effort. He made it real. She refused to go. There's a moment in every story like this. quiet and almost unremarkable from the outside, where something inside a person finally goes still. Not numb, not cold, just still. For him, it wasn't one dramatic blow-up. It wasn't a single confrontation where everything finally came to the surface. It was the accumulation. 2 years of being made to feel like the problem for wanting to know his own schedule. 2 years of apologies for failing to read a mind that had no interest in being read. And then one day, he let himself think forward. What happens when the kids start school? What happens when she decides it's his turn to pick them up and says nothing? And they wait at the curb, hours passing, until someone calls him in a meeting to tell him his children are still there. What happens the day she can't handle something and he's genuinely needed in the office? And she leaves without telling him, and two small children are alone in a house, waiting for someone who doesn't know they need to come home. He brought these fears to her. He told her what kept him up at night. He laid out the stakes, not for him, not for their marriage, but for their children. She got angry, and that was it. That was the moment the stillness arrived. Not because she was wrong to have emotions, but because she had been given every possible opportunity, every gentle conversation, every patient explanation, every last attempt at repair. And her consistent response to all of it was rage. He had tried. He had tried in every language available to him. Words, patience, therapy appointments. And she had answered every attempt with silence, or with anger, or with a locked drawer. He called an attorney. This story doesn't end with a screaming match or a dramatic confrontation. There is no single moment of catharsis here. But there is something arguably more powerful. There is clarity. He walked into that attorney's office not with fury, but with documentation. 2 years of incidents, quietly cataloged. A pattern that, once laid out in sequence, told a story no reasonable person could dismiss as miscommunication. He understood, perhaps for the first time, that he was not the chaotic one in this marriage. He was not the absent one, the disorganized one, the one who needed to pay more attention. He was the one who had been systematically kept in the dark, and then blamed for not seeing in it. Divorce in this context is not giving up. It is a man protecting his children by refusing to model helplessness for them. He knows what's coming. He knows the children will be affected. He carries that weight. He carries it openly, without pretending it doesn't exist. But he also knows what staying looks like. It looks like his daughter growing up watching her mother punish her father for asking to be treated like a partner. It looks like his son learning that love comes with locked drawers and manufactured confusion. The real reckoning here isn't a dramatic act of revenge. It's the moment a man decides his children deserve a father who knows where they are. And that father, clear-eyed, documented, and no longer willing to be kept in the dark, is exactly what he's becoming. This story is not about a bad day or a rough patch. It is about what happens when a pattern goes unnamed for long enough that it starts to feel like the weather. Just something you live with, something that simply is. He asked for communication. He was told he should already know. He asked for help. He was told he should be more alert. He asked for counseling. He was met with a closed door. At some point, a closed door stops being a boundary and starts being a message. And the only respectful thing you can do is believe it. There's something worth sitting with here. The cruelest betrayals in relationships are rarely the loud ones. They are the quiet ones. The withheld calendars, the locked drawers, the anger deployed every time someone asks to be treated as an equal. Control doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like chaos. Sometimes it looks like your failure to keep up. If any part of this story felt familiar, if you recognize something in the way information was weaponized, in the way asking for basic respect was treated as an offense, you are not imagining it, and you are not the problem. Drop a comment below. Was he right to walk away? And if you want to see what happens when someone finally stops asking and starts acting, the next story is already waiting for you.